So, I did a thing. I did a big thing. Hey folks, my name is Jen, and I am here yet again this year to share a haul of books that I acquired recently. I'm out of room. Okay, let's get into it. So, I have quite a few books stacked behind me that, yeah, over the past couple of months I've kind of like acquired them, and let's go with the first stack. The first of these is actually a book that I was just like bopping around CVS and saw this in their book section, and read the like prologue or first chapter or whatever, and I was like, this is coming home with me. That is The Eyes of the Dragon by Stephen King. Now, I have heard of this title before and just assumed that the dragon eyes part of it was potentially like, you know, some line or some monster or some kind of thing from one of his horror novels. No, this is a young adult fantasy novel that Mr. King has written. In fact, written a while ago, because this is the 35th anniversary edition. So this is basically a sprawling fantasy of dark magic and the struggle for absolute power that utterly transformed the destinies of two brothers born into royalty. So these next few books I acquired because I've been listening to the She Done It podcast, which is like a podcast that talks about mostly the golden age of mystery, so like vintage mystery novels, and they'll talk about like various things having to do with like those authors or themes within the books, the novels themselves, different things like that. So I, in my perusal of vintage mysteries online, I found this really pretty like vintage copy of 450 from Paddington by Agatha Christie. This is a Miss Marple mystery, and I read like a lot, and I read like a lot of Poirot, but not so much Miss Marple. So I've been wanting to try to read more of hers, and when I saw this, I wanted to grab it. This is one that I have not read before, well, until this like month basically. There's another title for this book. It's also known as What Miss McGillicuddy Saw. I think this might be the British title, and What Mrs. McGillicuddy Saw is the American title, but I could be wrong. But it basically follows this older lady named Mrs. McGillicuddy. She is riding a train home from London, where she has been, you know, taking a weekend to Christmas shop. While she is on her way, there's this one section where trains will like pass each other, and if you've ridden in like a busy area with train tracks, you've probably seen other trains pass before. So she just catches this train as it goes by, and sees a man strangling a woman to death in the passing train, and knows that she saw what she saw. But no one really seems to believe her, except for her dear friend Miss Marple, who knows a thing or two about murder. So yeah, this is a pretty great whodunit. There's a character introduced in here that I really loved. Yeah, so this was great. Also, in my vintage mysteries, I decided to check out a couple of new authors, or rather, new to me authors. One of which is Niall Marsh. So I ended up grabbing like a stack of some of her mysteries here, of which I already have read, and it is A Man Lay Dead. This is actually the first of the Inspector Roderick Allen series, and this is following, well, Roderick Allen is introduced investigating a murder that happened at this rich dude's estate. He was throwing a weekend party, and they played the murder game. Only one of his guests actually ends up dead. So that's that one. I'm currently reading Death in a White Tie. This is like volume 7 or 8, I think, in the Roderick Allen series. And this is following Inspector Allen is investigating like this blackmailer who's like going around blackmailing rich society ladies, and he enlists the help of one of his old family friends, who's a very kind man and is very social. He usually goes to like all the soirees and stuff for the season, and he enlists his help in just kind of observing and trying to see if he can figure out who the blackmailer is and what's going on with that. And unfortunately, this gets his friend murdered. So Roderick Allen has now taken this as a personal affront, and he's going to personally find the blackmailer and end him. Basically because he has killed this dear, sweet man who was just helping a dude out. He wasn't like doing anything wrong. I actually like this so far a lot more than I liked this. There were some things in here that were very weird, but yeah, I'm really enjoying this so far. And then there's a couple more. There is Color Scheme, which takes place at the New Zealand hot springs, and actually I think most of these take place in New Zealand, I believe, because that's where Niall Marsh was from, I believe. But yeah, so this takes place at the New Zealand hot springs, and there is apparently like this health establishment that is near the hot springs, and it's sketchy. And amongst all of the like random individuals that are at this like seedy health establishment, amongst these weirdos that are there, this like bizarre group of people that are there, there's apparently an enemy agent who is also present, and it says he dies in violent and macabre circumstances. I'm guessing that he gets boiled alive in the hot springs. That's my guess based on the cover and just the description, but I don't know. So Roderick Allen investigates that. Then there is Spinsters in Jeopardy, which, spinsters? Really? I don't know how this one's going to be at all. Actually, I think I'm going to like most of these. I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about this one though, to be in all honesty, because the back says drugs, the black mass, murder, all these ingredients plus a kidnapping, a sinister castle, its curiously assorted guests, and the horrible and degrading rites of the amatory mass are stirred together in this cauldron of a story. And it's like an early Satanic Panic thing. Like, what's happening here? I think this one at least is going to be laughable, because the first book, The Man Lay Dead, there was like this brotherhood group in it, basically, and there was these terrible rites, secret rites that they do, and I'm like, this is a real group of people that existed in history, and I'm about 85 to 90% certain that these terrible secret rites were not a thing that was within that group whatsoever. I think Niall Marsh is just making shit up. So this, I don't know if I'm gonna like it, but I know it's gonna be a wild ride when I get to it. And the last one I grabbed of hers is Scales of Justice. And this one I think is also going to be interesting. And it is taking place in this like small village. And there's this old, like, rich old man who is at the end of his life, basically. He's on his deathbed. And he decides to hand a manuscript to an old friend of his. And the manuscript has, like, details about his own exploits and, like, a lot of shit having to do with, like, people in the town. And it's possibly going to damage the respectability of this little town. And his friend who has the manuscript then winds up, like, murdered. So, what was in the manuscript that got him killed, basically, and what is happening? And the last of the mysteries that I grabbed because of the podcast was The Haunted Murders by Seishi Yokomizo. This is the first Kosuke Kendaichi mystery. This is a Honkaku murder mystery, which is a Japanese like puzzle mystery. They're based off of like the Western golden age of mystery, pretty much, and this was great. I highly recommend checking this out. This is taking place in the winter of 1937. A wedding occurs, and then later that night, the bride and groom are like brutally murdered in a locked room, basically. So the very eccentric private detective Kosuke Daichi ends up being called in to investigate what happened. It's so good. And then I also ended up grabbing Book of Cymbeline, A Kitten's Tale from Summer to Fall. This is written and illustrated by Emma Stewart, aka Bookish Princess. She had posted fairly recently that this was like now for sale online, and wanted to support her, and also wanted to read the story because, I mean, Cymbeline is absolutely adorable. So, grabbed this. It is like super cute. The art is also really cute, and yeah, I really enjoyed this. It's adorable. And then we get into birthday books. So, birthday things. Well, first, I got this this book themed, you know, coffee mug, so that was cool. My husband got me this. It is A for Arsenic, The Poisons of Agatha Christie, and this is by Catherine Harkup. This just says 14 novels, 14 poisons. Just because it's fiction doesn't mean it's all made up. So this is about like Agatha Christie and there's a bit about like her work in the dispensary during World War I and how she like learned about poisons, how she got into them and stuff like that, and then it breaks down like each poison. So it says, so it's like A is for arsenic, B is for belladonna, C is for cyanide, D is for digitalis, E is for esserine, and it just basically goes down the list, and it tells you also what book of hers it was in, what it was used in. And so, for example, arsenic, it talks to you about arsenic, how it was used in the book, the history of the poison, and then also go into like the scientific side of it and everything. It is super cool. He grabbed this because I won't shut up about Agatha Christie, basically, or this, or She Done It, which I've been listening to a lot lately, and also because I've been working on my own like mysteries, and he wanted me to have like another reference book, so yeah. So then I received Barnes & Noble gift cards and some extra like birthday money, and I went to Barnes & Noble and came out with a lot. Yeah. Believe it or not, this stack says that I have self-control because I did put books back. Like I had other books and I put them back. So, yeah. I got a variety of things. The first of which I grabbed a romance novel. And that is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. Everyone and their mother has been like screaming about this book for the past few years from what I can remember, and I was in the romance section and saw this and was like, you know what, now's the time. So this is following Chloe Brown. She's like a chronically ill computer geek, and she always has like basically life holding her back from her life. And she has decided, after almost but not quite dying, that she is going to make a to-do list of things that she is going to experience and go out and do them and live her life. And the first thing is like moving out. And then her other list is enjoy a drunken night out, ride a motorcycle, go camping, have meaningless but thoroughly enjoyable sex, travel the world with nothing but hand luggage, and do something bad. And Chloe needs a teacher for doing something bad because she's been a goody-goody her entire life, basically, and she knows just the man for the job. Her teacher is going to be Red Morgan, who is a handyman with tattoos, a motorcycle, and more sex appeal than 10,000 Hollywood heartthrobs. So yeah, I have heard basically only good things about this book, which is surprising, because oftentimes with romance novels, especially like very popular romance novels, you will hear bad things as well. But next to, I think, like the Reluctant Royals series, this is like the only other romance like series that I've heard of that I have not really heard negative things. I'm sure there are people that this does not work for, but the majority of people talking about this have just been raving about this entirely, including people who are not into romances. So, I'm pretty hopeful, and I think this is going to be really good. Then, I grabbed an action adventure, and of course it's Clive Cussler. This is called Iceberg, and this is, of course, a Dirk Pitt novel. So Dirk Pitt is just doing like a routine like survey mission out in like the, I think it's the Atlantic? Yes, the North Atlantic, and during this he finds this like luxury yacht encased in like this giant iceberg basically, and this yacht has been like missing for a long time. Yacht like has been like missing. It was on its way to this rendezvous with the White House for this like super important thing, so of course, Dirk and the rest of Numa get pulled into investigating, like, why this happened, basically. But things get stranger because inside of this luxury yacht, the entire crew is found burned alive. Inside of a massive iceberg. I grabbed this because, first of all, love the Dirk Pitt books, and second of all, I wanted another good book to put aside to read in December that was winter or Christmas themed, and I couldn't find any appealing Christmas themed books, so I went with one about a giant iceberg. The next couple of books I grabbed are pretty hefty classics. So because I love A Christmas Carol like so much, and it is one of my top favorite books of all time, I've been wanting to expand my reading beyond just that into more of Dickens. But now you would think, what would I go with as a Dickens? Well, Great Expectations is very popular, and it is one that I have thought about. It was actually one that I intended to get a hold of when I went in there initially. And or, you know, I could have gone with something that I've heard is pretty funny, like the Pickwick Papers. No, I went with Bleak House. Because, and this is again because of shedunnit, there is a, like, mystery element in here. There's, like, a detective involved in the story, and that intrigued me, because I didn't think that Dickens had, like, mystery stuff in his books at all. So, yeah, I ended up grabbing this. It's, this is a chunky boy. I'm gonna be able to summarize this well enough if you don't know what Bleak House is about, so I'm just gonna read the back to you. As the interminable case of Jarndyce and Jarndyce grinds its way through the court of chancery, it draws together a disparate group of people. Ada Clare and Richard Carstone, whose inheritance is gradually being devoured by legal costs. Esther Summerson, a ward of court. The menacing lawyer Tulkinghorn. The determined sleuth Inspector Bucket. And even Joe, a destitute crossing sweeper. I don't know what crossing sweeper means. I think it's like the street, maybe? A savage indictment of a society that is rotten to the core, Bleak House is one of Dickens' most ambitious novels, with a range that extends from the drawing rooms of the aristocracy to the London slums. I don't know, because it's Bleak House, I don't know if this is going to be kind of depressing or not, but I think it also sounds very intriguing as well. Like, there's a lot happening in this, and from more that I was like looking at about this book, it sounds like a lot of people view this as like his masterpiece, perhaps. So yeah, I think this is going to take me a while to get through perhaps, but I'm very interested. I did look at a couple of first pages because when I'm like unsure about books in the store, I always try to read like the first page or two just to see how I feel about it. And the writing, I mean, it's still definitely Dickens. It's just, it feels a little bit different than obviously what I'm used to with like A Christmas Carol, but it's still Dickens, and it's still kind of sucked me in. So yeah, I think this is gonna be really good. I wanted another of my boy Dumas's, so I grabbed The Three Musketeers. I did not know that this was a chunky boy. So full disclosure, I tried to read this in like, I want to say it was some point in college. Like, it was definitely not when I was in school, so I think it was during the summer between like years in college, and I tried to read an ebook of this, and I only got like 2 chapters in, and I ended up DNFing it because I really didn't like D'Artagnan. And this, of course, is following young D'Artagnan, who basically does not have a lot to his name, but he decides that he is going to travel to, I believe he travels to Paris. Yeah. He travels to Paris. He's like a young swordsman from the provinces, and he's determined to like prove his worth and like make a name for himself and make money and stuff. So he moves to Paris and decides that he is going to try to be a part of like the Musketeers, which the Musketeers are like the private army sort of King Louis. Is that the 15th? 13th. King Louis the 13th. I know how to read Roman numerals. It's basically King Louis the 13th. They're like his private little army, basically, his musketeers, his like famed swordsmen. And they have sworn enemies in Cardinal Richelieu's like his own army of swordsmen. It's like state versus church struggle going on. What I know of the Three Musketeers is basically down to the Three Musketeers movie, not the older one, I mean the newer one where Orlando Bloom was the bad guy, and there was like a steampunk thing going on, basically. And that episode of Wishbone that I watched when I was like 8, and yeah. So needless to say, I don't know that much about this in general. I only know bits and pieces, but I know that I absolutely adored Count of Monte Cristo. Dumas is like, his plots are so convoluted, but everything, even though it's like so much, it like every detail ends up making sense later, and they're just, even though it's so thick, so action packed, and I know that this is like part of, I think, a trilogy. This is like the first in a trilogy following D'Artagnan, I believe, and I think this is going to be fun. This translation specifically, everyone, the praise and stuff on here, this seems like this is the best translation of this, and I did indeed look at the first page, and this translation does sound like it's better than the translation I attempted back in college. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a good time. This is probably honestly going to be another one of those books that I specifically set aside like a couple of weekends to read this, like I did with Monte Cristo. And I grabbed a mystery because, again, can't go to a bookstore and not grab a mystery. And also, because of listening to the Sheet on It podcast, Caroline did a episode about A Kirsty for Christmas. I guess it's like a tradition in Britain that people just settle down with like a mystery on Christmas Day, or like during the Christmas holidays, basically, and that sounds wonderful. So I wanted a new mystery to do that with, potentially. So I have read Midwinter Murders, and I couldn't honestly remember if I've already read Hercule Poirot's Christmas, because I think that it might have a different title, which is really frustrating because I've accidentally bought a couple of different books of the same, copies of the same book, as it's had different titles. So I didn't want to get that on the off chance that I've read it before. So I decided to go with another Miss Marvel mystery, and that is a Caribbean mystery. So this one I, again, have never read. It's like really short. Basically, Miss Marple is on vacation in the Caribbean. She's like enjoying the sun and everything. Even though she's like feeling very good, this is good for like her rheumatism and everything, she's really bored because nothing is happening. Until this like old soldier that she's been kind of socializing with starts telling her about this murderer he once knew. But when he's almost getting to like the climax of the story, he is interrupted because of circumstances, and apparently that interruption proves fatal. Then I grabbed a fantasy, and that is a Legends and Lattes, and this is by Travis Baldree. Everybody's been yelling about this book, and because it sounded really interesting, I decided I had to grab a copy of it. So if you've been here a while, you know how picky I am about like fantasies. Even though this is technically like a high fantasy setting, it's not dealing with high fantasy stuff. So this is about Viv, who is, I believe, an orc. That's an orc, right? I'm pretty sure it is. I'm sorry. I've like been around D&D and listened to D&D stuff, but I haven't like actually played a whole campaign. I'm rusty on some of this thing. I believe she's an orc. But basically she's like this big like time warrior, and she's had like a lifetime of like chasing treasure, fighting battles, doing all that kind of thing, and she's just really tired of it. So she just decides to retire and move to this town. It is the city of Thune, and open a coffee shop. So this is basically her journey of learning how to run a coffee shop in this like bonkers D&D universe basically, and she's has to deal with like people who think like, why the hell is an orc gonna own run a shop. Then she also has to deal with like old arrivals and stuff like that, but it sounds like it's going to be just really interesting, and I like that it's such a different take on like a fantasy world setting. It's not like your typical, it's just something different, and I'm very interested in this. So then I decided to also grab a book of poetry, and that is Call Us What We Carry, and this is by Amanda Gorman. Amanda Gorman, if you somehow don't know who she is the poet who read, oh crap, what is his title? I believe it's The Hill We Climb, and it was the inaugural poem in like January 2020 that she read at the inauguration. Beautiful poem. This is a collection of poetry. I just heard about this recently, and I believe where I heard about it was on the Goodreads, like, you know, the end of the year, like, best books of 2022 thing. I believe I just saw this as, like, nominated in, like, the poetry section, and I was like, oh, she has a collection. So, yeah, when I saw this at Barnes & Noble, I was like, okay, I have to get this, because I really loved her poem, and I want to, you know, branch out from the poets I keep coming back to. The first of these is Who the F Are You? And this is by Huda, oh man, I'm gonna pronounce her last name terribly. Fame? I think it's Fame, I'm sorry. Yeah, she has a Instagram that is called Yes I Am Hot in This. Yeah, Yes I'm Hot in This. And she does like little webcomics basically about her life and experiences as a Muslim woman growing up in America. And this is basically a graphic novel, like memoir about what it was like to grow up once her family moved from there town where she had lived until, like, I think high school or junior high, and then her parents up and moved her and her 4 sisters to a new city. And this is all about her experiences, and I really enjoy her. I actually really enjoy all of her posts, but I really love her, like, webcomics, so I knew she'd written this, and I was just happy to find this and grab a copy of it. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Then I grabbed Volume 2 of The Adventure Zone, and this is Murder on the Rockport Limited. So The Adventure Zone is actually started as like a podcast run by the McElroy brothers and their father Clint, and it's basically them playing their own unique version of D&D. If you know the brothers McElroy, you probably know them from their other podcasts as well. My Brother and Me is like super popular, and then they each have like their own podcasts that they have with their wives, and then they have a couple of them have like other projects with other people as well. But this is like the graphic novel by them, illustrated by Carrie Peisch, and it is like documenting some of their storyline from the podcast, The Adventure Zone. And so I have Volume 1 here, The Begerblins, and I've been meaning to pick up more of the volumes of the graphic novel, so I decided now is the time, so I grabbed, like I said, Volume 2. And the last thing I grabbed was Volume 2 of Lore Olympus. So this is by Rachel Smythe, and this is basically a retelling of the Hades and Persephone myth. It is so good. It is such a good retelling. The artwork is so colorful and just absolutely beautiful. And I just love this so much. I think the author is so talented, and it's so good. I've been wanting to own like physical copies, so I knew that Volume 2 had come out, so I wanted to grab this. Volume 3 is also out. I thought that it hadn't officially been released yet. I thought just the arc was out potentially, but then I saw like volumes of it at the store. I almost got that too, but I had to have some form of self-control, so I didn't end up grabbing Volume 3 yet, but yeah, this is just so good. If you like Greek myths or you like retellings of Greek myths, I would definitely highly suggest this. There are some things in here that can be potentially, like, you know, if you're sensitive to them, they can be problems, so she has like a content warning and stuff like that in the front, so just so you're aware. But yeah, it's just so good. So yeah, this is everything I grabbed. It's out of control. I just reorganized. I had to reorganize again. Oops. But you know what? Life is good. Because I have new books, and I have so many exciting things to read. And, yeah. Good birthday month. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, you guys. Thank you for always watching. If you would like to subscribe, please do so, if you would like. And if you have, like, read any of these before, no spoilers, please, but tell me what you thought of them. Yeah. And if you haven't, but you're interested, let me know. Basically, I will be letting you know as I read them how, well, how they were, but mostly, you know, how I felt about them. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!